Okay, so for round 2, you can see here in net profits per team that almost all teams improve their net profits, with Team 22, Team 31 surpassing $80 million in profits. Most teams here coming above, many teams coming above 70 million in profits, and then just about everybody above 60 million in profits, which is a big improvement over the previous year. Is what you would expect in an industry growing from anywhere, each individual car is growing anywhere from 20 to 30%. So if we look at points per team, we see that in the next round, we had a team here underperform with 400 points, but then be the top performer this round with 816 points. The same thing for team 14, was able to also have a very good second year. But if most teams did better than 400 points, that's a pretty good year, because remember, you're trying to make 2,500 points by the end of the simulation because it's a competition, and most teams are doing that. And remember, as I said last video, the first year is pretty easy to earn points. The second year, now you're competing over year returns from last year's performance, which was your own team. So it gets a little bit difficult to keep beating yourself, especially in business. Now, stock prices have gone up. We have a new leader in stock price here. Team 33 is also high up there. Team 22, Team 31, Team 9 in stock price. And then we had sales per team. We had many, one team here is at 370 million. Many other teams are at most teams are over 300 million in sales, which is pretty good for the year. And then earnings per share, we have Team 22, Team 33, Team 31 doing pretty well with earnings per share. Okay, so the results are in. And the one thing that I like to look at that's really telling is the gross profit margin. So we have many teams here above 50%. Most teams are at 50% or higher, which is good. That's exactly where you want to be. If your team is at 44% or lower, and one team is actually at 39%, which is backwards from, you started at 40%, so this team actually went backwards, which investors hate. And you can see by the percentile score, very bad performance here. So if you're in these low 40 percentiles, you want to start getting your gross profit margins up above 50%. And you want to try to increase it anywhere from 3 to 5 percentage points every round, those gross profit margins. And as far as cumulative points, many teams are more than halfway there. Let's see, all these teams here. Within 2 rounds, most teams are more than halfway there to the goal of 2,500 points, and you still have 4 rounds to go to earn those. And there's a few teams here that still, if you have 900 points, you're still on track. So there's no team here really behind as far as what they need to earn each round to get a cumulative score of 2,500. So all teams are still on track for a full grade. We just have 4 more rounds to go to see if you can hold on to those points. Okay. So now I'm going to go into my test group, which is you're in the wrong group. And so far, only Justine hasn't woken up to realize that she's still in the wrong group and needs to join her correct group, and is at this point is going to have to email me. And if it doesn't email me, this is, you can't receive any credit for the team competition if you don't remove yourself from you are in the wrong group and join your real team members. So let's go into this game here. And we're going to go into the Playteam competition. And remember, this is my example team, which I'm using to help point out hints and best practices and how to move forward in the simulation. So here, the first thing you should do is review the overview. Here in the overview, I could see that I did well on my revenues, increased by 50%. My quick ratio and debt ratios improved. My profit margins, like I said, if you watched the video last round, I'm trying to improve, and I did go up by 3%, 2%, 2%, which is a 5, 6, and 6 improvement, which isn't the greatest, but it's still I'm moving in the right direction. Now my asset turnover here, I lost points in my asset turnover, and I didn't make, barely made a change in my return on assets because I bought a lot of assets last round, which hindered my ability to do well my asset turnover or return on assets because I increased the assets so greatly compared to my profits or sales. And you can learn more about this in Chapter 3. So if you watch the Chapter 3 lecture in finance, I talk about these financial ratios and financial statements. So Chapter 3 is a key chapter in understanding the performance in the simulation and understanding how teams work to increase the shareholders' wealth, which is something we learned from Chapter 1, and how teams use the financial markets, which we learned in Chapter 2, to issue stock or issue debt to raise funds to invest in the company. And we learned in Chapter 3 how to interpret financial results and financial statements and pro forma financial statements. So this is, you see how this simulation is involved in the textbook pretty closely. Now, so I lost points on my equity because my equity didn't grow as fast as my debt. But my market capitalization, because my stock price went up, I earned points there. My book value went up, I earned some points there. My accuracy and my forecasting was lower overall. And my investments in the company were good. I earned 100 points by more than doubling my investments. But I had this unexpected deficit again, which I didn't think I was going to have a deficit, which instead of having 599 points, I only have 299 points. So this deficit is something I have to pay close attention to because it really robs me of a lot of points. And usually when I have this deficit, it's because I have a lot of unsold inventory. So I'm going to go over how to better prepare so you don't have so much unsold inventory that led to that unexpected deficit. So when I go into the sales area, one area that was poor was my forecasting. So again, like I described in the, I'm going to go to the user manual. Unless there's an error, I wasn't able to pull up the user manual. But if you go to the practice game or any of the other web pages, it looks like I can get the student manual from those pages. So in the student manual, I'm going to go to, and hopefully you've already downloaded the student manual. I'm going to go to this sales forecasting. And I see it gives me the growth rate of each vehicle every year. Luxury grows the fastest, followed by sedan, then economy, then truck. And here I have the year 3 forecast for sales. And this is, if you read the little disclaimer down here, this says what I'm likely to sell if all companies are identical in every way, the price, their features. So this just gives me sort of a real kind of an average, I guess, expected sales. It doesn't mean this is exactly what's going to be sold, but it's sort of a number to keep me more focused. So I'm going to go back to the individual game, and I'm going to go in here and let's see here. I'm going to, first I got to redesign my vehicles, and I have more operational reductions. So this should help me to keep my vehicles a little bit higher. I'll be able to provide better features for most things for the vehicle. And let's see. Okay, I was able to increase my profit margins, and then I'm going to go with the recommended sales, not recommended sales, but I'm going to use this as my base. I'm going to figure that my cars aren't better than most companies. So I'm going to go a little bit lower than the top end. If I felt my cars were really terrible, I might just do 3,000. If I felt my cars were really great, I might do 3,500. So you have to really feel kind of an idea of how aggressive your cars are compared to your competitors, how much you're advertising. There's a lot of factors that go in here. And of course, this is stuff I'd write down my reflective observations. I'd say that I'm redesigning the vehicle to remain competitive, and I expect it to help my company's performance because I have a higher profit margin, and I'm calculating my forecast using the user guide, but I'm forecasting a little bit lower based on maybe I'm going at 95% of what the suggested sales are because of the way I'm building the car. These are things you could write in reflective observations. So here I'm going to do the same thing And again, a little bit lower than the top end. And what I'm trying to do is, and also very important, always trying to improve my profit margin. And because that's what investors really expect, is that your profit margins are going to go up. And this is something that is very important to investors. And if your profit margins don't go up, then they're not going to want to buy your vehicle. Okay. Let's move down here. And then the luxury. And I got some improvements there. And you see that I'm always trying to, because the customer expectations are increasing, I'm trying to increase my customer expectations. So the New Year's car is always better than the previous year's car. And here you see that my profit margin here has not gone up. So I'm going to have to pull back a little bit to make sure it goes up a little bit. So I have to note that, yeah, my profit margins really are not doing that well in the luxury. So I'm going to look to buy more operational investments so I can get those profit margins higher there in that luxury class. Okay, moving into the marketing. And again, the student manual. I'm going to go to the marketing section. Again, try to refresh my memory on, for each vehicle, what's the importance factors of how consumers are going to look at the media and what's going to be most influential. And I see that newspapers and televisions are most influential on most of these cases, most of these vehicles. And I'm going to have to translate that into spending. So again, here, I want to see that the spending, actually, this is my range. So I'm going to spend probably above 1,500, but below 2 million. But that's my range of what, and this means the industry report saying this is what they expect most advertisers to spend this round. So it gives you an idea. So you really don't want to be too much below this number, or maybe not too much above the number. And each car has this importance factor. So if you add this importance factor here, and I go back to the sales page and I add these up, you'll see 25, 30, 45, 50, 60, 75%. And I go back to marketing, and this should be the remainder. Did I add that wrong? Let me see. 30, 45, 50, 60, 85. Yep, I did add 8. And then 100%. So that makes up the full 100% of demand. And you see that here, for sedan, the advertising is more important, and for truck, advertising is the most influential. So I might spend a little bit higher or more on advertising my truck because it's such an important factor in selling the car. Okay, so I'm going to I'm going to pause it, fill this out. It takes a while. I'm going to move into production afterwards. Okay, so now I'm in the economy class. And I see I need to buy actually, I don't need to buy a production plan because I have this current inventory that I could reuse. And that would save me a lot of money from buying a production plan here. And I'm going to reinvest some more money in my operational savings. Here again, I don't have to buy a production plant, which is going to help me greatly because I had so much leftover inventory. It's actually helping me this round. And I'm going to buy some more operational investments here to help maintain the profitability of my cars. And remember, you always want this excess shortage to be 0. Otherwise, your pro forma financial statements will not be correct. And remember, you are responsible for filling out these reflective observations. So when it says capacity utilization, here I'm at, not 100%. So if I take, 2,500, about 2,500 divided by 3,000, I get my capacity utilization. So in these reflective observations, I would probably just write out the formula. And I think, let's see what this is. 2,500 divided by 3,000. 83%. Do my capacity utilization. And this is important because I don't want to have idle factories. This is why I don't buy more factories than I need, because it's a waste of fixed assets, and I already have a bloated fixed assets that make it difficult for me to have a high return on assets, a high total asset turnover. So I'm trying to keep my utilization above 80% for most vehicles so that I can use my assets as efficiently as possible. And that's why this reflective observations are important, because a high percentage of capacity utilization will improve total asset turnover, return on assets, and make my company more efficient. So that's what I want to see when you're writing this out. Operational investments, yeah. So I'm trying to maximize my operational investments as much as I can, but I can't buy unlimited. I can't buy all the operational investments every round. I just don't have the money to make that investment. So I'm going to, slowly but surely, I'm going to keep improving these numbers as I have the extra money. Okay. Moving into the final part here, which is the finance part. So I'm going to look down at the bottom. So here's my pro forma. And we learned this in chapter 3. Pro forma is our guess of what next year's financial statements will be based on our inputs. So we had our inputs in sales, and so we know from our sales side how many cars we're forecasting, the sales price, the cost. We know our marketing, how much we're spending in marketing. We know in production how much we're spending in operational investments in new plants. So this all gets built into the pro forma financial statement, which will only be correct if my forecasts are 100% accurate. If not, I'll have a different result. So if I go down here, I say, yeah, my sales are improving, my profits are improving. I always have to keep a minimum cash balance of $25 million, and minimum cash balances are talked about in chapter 4. We talk about financial planning and cash budgets. So we know that this company has to keep a minimum of $25 million in their cash. So any excess or deficit or surplus will be shown down here, and I do have a cash surplus. So I have some extra money. I'm going to use that to buy down some debt. This will help improve my ratios for my debt margins. And I'm also going to, let's see, that's too much. Okay, I'm going to buy down some debt, and I'm also going to buy back some stock. Well, my stock price is, buy back $5 million worth of stock. Okay. Now, I still have a good surplus here, so I'm going to make sure I definitely don't have another surprise deficit and lose 200 points. Okay, and then in the reflective observations, I would write here, my strategic plan here is to keep my assets very efficient by having a high capacity utilization. I'm also increasing my profit margins by 2 to 5% to make sure that I'm continually increasing my profit margins and my revenues to please investors. I've made a decision to have a high cash surplus to protect against a deficit, and my net profits and net profit margins are both higher this round. So this is what kind of I would write in this reflective observation. Okay, so I'm done. I'm going to complete the round. Now the round has been completed, and remember, you can always go back in at a later date to see things or change things if you want to play around with the round. It'll give you this sign here that it's been completed. So you can always go back in and look at things and talk about things. You may want to look at your assessment to see how well you're doing and recommendations. Of course, you might want to review your charts. Specifically, I would say your team performance chart you want to look at. If you scroll down here, you want to look at, you can see here that I met all of my demand for each vehicle because I overproduced and had a lot of that excess surplus. Okay. So that's it for this video. And the purpose of these videos are to review the results and then give you hints and tips on how to complete the next round. And try to, because I want everybody to do well in this. I want everybody to make their full points. So that's why I'm creating these videos to help interpret how the round has been progressing and the results, and then also show you by example ideas of how you can fill out the third round. So this is probably the last time I will show you, give you such detailed suggestions on completing and inputting each round. For the next 3 rounds, 4, 5, and 6, I'll still review the results, but I'm not going to give you a step-by-step run-through of completing the round because, I want from this point on, I want you guys should know enough. I want you guys to move forward and complete the rounds without too much input from me, so we can have a real team competition here. Okay, thank you for your time. I hope you found this helpful, and good luck this Thursday on round or year 3.